All right, trying something a little different today, not by choice. I'm in the middle of building my studio and it has completely messed up my entire house. I have nowhere to film. My home office where I typically film videos is completely cluttered with gear from my basement, which is completely cluttered from things from my garage to make room for all the electrical work that's being done in my studio. And very soon there will be a YouTube series on the build process of my recording studio itself, a whole series of the entire process in depth, if that's something you're interested in. Anyway, I wanted to shoot this impromptu video because there's something that's been heavy on my mind lately. It's sort of like this trend that's too difficult to ignore at this point. What I've come to realize, at least this is my theory, and it's pretty obvious at this point, I believe that most of you guys, or most home studio owners in general, are scared of simplicity, or at the very least, turned off by it. Now, what I mean by this is whenever I tell people to focus on the basics, simplify your approach, they almost always will combat what I recommend to them with some excuse, some other question that's overly complicated, and I don't think it's anyone's fault. I'm kind of guilty of this myself in other aspects of my life. Even when I started out with production, I would often overcomplicate things. But what I've noticed is that there are some people, even when I demonstrate the importance of simplicity and how you don't have to make the process complicated, you don't need expensive gear, you don't need to use overly complicated mixing techniques and plugins, people seem to not like that. I don't really know why, and that's why I'm making this video. I'd love to know your opinion on this, but I'm gonna give you some real world examples of what I see happening over and over and over again. There are really three. I'm just gonna talk freestyle, mention to you exactly what I've been observing, because I'm really curious to know your take on this. Okay, example number one, guitar tone. Most of the viewers of my YouTube channel are guitar players. I would say at least 80% last time I polled. People often will say they struggle with their guitar tone. The guitar tones aren't clear, they don't sound like their favorite records, they don't know what to use, yada, 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 right? I always tell people this, focus on the basics. If you're using a real amp, use one microphone on the right spot of a V30, you really can't go wrong. As long as you're playing well, you're editing your tracks, you should easily be able to achieve a great guitar tone. If you're using an amp sim, use any amp sim. I don't care if it's a free amp sim, a cheap amp sim, an amp sim from 15 years ago, it doesn't matter. Just use a high quality impulse response. By the way, if you don't have a high quality impulse response, you can download mine for absolutely free. There's a link below in this video's description. Okay, I've made tons of videos on this in the past, showcasing how you can get great guitar tone with a free IR, a cheap amplifier, a free amp sim. I still, to this day, whether it's coaching clients or people that email me, they'll say, hey Bobby, I'm trying to combine these three IRs. Why doesn't it sound right? I just bought the latest Neural DSP plugin that has this option, this option, this option, this option, this option, this option. Why doesn't my tone sound right? I'm trying to combine 4 cabs with 5 different microphones. How do I combine these tones? Again, even after I tell them to not do that, the focus on the basics, I don't know. People seem to not like this answer, and I really don't know why. I think they're either scared of simplicity or again, are just turned off by it. Might have something to do with the idea that you still have to work on your skill, and I think people don't necessarily like that. But anyway, I'd love to know your opinion. The next example, hardware. Let me tell you something. I've been running a project studio, recording bands professionally for the last almost 20 years, and I've never used hardware, only plugins, ever since the year 2006. The common question I get is, what mic preamp should I get? What compressor should I get for my vocal chain? And I'll always ask people, well, why do you think you need a vocal chain? And often they'll say to me, well, I want a nice high-end analog vocal chain or recording chain for guitar or drums or whatever on the way into my DAW. Again, I've demonstrated on this channel dozens, maybe even hundreds of times that you can achieve great results with a basic interface and plugins, even stock plugins. But I still have a portion of my audience, not everybody, but a decent portion of my audience that are still obsessed with adding hardware to their setups. Now, I'm not saying it's wrong. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying hardware is, wrong to have. I might even buy some for my new studio. It's fun. I use it when I'm recording out of Pro Studios as well. But the fact remains that you don't need it to achieve the results that you have in your head. It comes down to how you utilize the plugins in your DAW. You can achieve a nice gooey analog sounding vocal with just plugins. You don't need hardware. You could achieve a great drum sound or guitar sound or bass sound just recording straight into your cheapo interface. I've been doing it for years. Again, I have tons of videos on this channel. I have a YouTube series where I recorded an entire song from scratch using a cheap 8-channel interface, live drums, no external outboard gear whatsoever. The proof's in the pudding. Yet still, I could prove this to people time and time again. I still get this question. They still ask me, what compressor should I get? What preamp should I get? And I tell them, oh my God, focus on your skill first. You know, I know gear companies won't like the fact that I'm saying this, but it really is the truth. Okay, and the third example that I'm seeing a lot when I work with people one-on-one more so, or even in my private membership, and that is overly complex mixing techniques. Oh my God. I have people ask me about MS processing. Should they parallel compress their snare to their vocal and their lead guitar so things are out of the way of one another? Stereo wideners. God, what is the newest one? There's AI is the newest gimmick, right? Like everyone is trying to overly complicate the mixing process. And I always tell people this, focus on basic EQ moves, understand how to use high-pass filters, don't neglect automation, get the most out of the stock plugins in your DAW, focus on the basics, and you should be able to achieve a pro-level mix with what you already own without having to go insane using overly complicated techniques. Now, I'm not saying that techniques like parallel compression aren't useful. I use them myself, but we have to remember that's the last 5% of the mix. A lot of times when people send me their mixes, there are way bigger issues than that. Whether the source tracks weren't recorded right, they completely neglect editing, they're not using automation at all, overdoing things, underdoing other things. Those are the big picture kind of mixing techniques that you should be focusing on, or techniques in general, production techniques. I shouldn't even call it mixing, production techniques. The longer that I've been doing this, again, I'm almost at 20 years, about 20 years now, the more simple my approach to mixing, recording, and production, my approach becomes. Most of what you're obsessing over is just a giant distraction. And again, I prove this time and time again, sometimes even to my clients, and I have a handful of people, maybe a little more than a handful, that just don't seem to be into this idea. It's almost kind of like deflating in a weird way, and I really don't know why, because I personally love simplicity. I love the idea that you don't have to spend a lot of money to get great results. You don't have to make your life complicated. You don't constantly have to upgrade your gear and upgrade your plugins and come up with some crazy new mixing technique constantly. It's just not necessary. Your results really come from having a simple, provable, actionable game plan and workflow for the production process as a whole. So I know this was a little bit of a different video. I didn't really have a choice, nowhere to film, kind of raw. It's kind of fun though. I might do it again in the future. If you like this style video, let me know in the comments below. And please let me know your opinion on this topic. Are you scared of simplicity? Are you turned off by the idea that you really don't need a whole lot to achieve great results? Do you like the idea of constantly buying new gear and upgrading your hardware? Are you addicted to watching YouTube videos that are constantly telling you about fancy pants mixing techniques that are just really hurting your mixes? I'm gonna be honest with you. Let me know by leaving a comment in the comment section below. I'd love to know your opinion. Now, if you're interested in that YouTube series where I record an entire song from absolute scratch in non-studio environments using cheapo gear, watch this video. I think you'll find it very informative.